And thank you very much to Northern Ontario Angels and Link North for having me here today, and thank you to Northern College for hosting us. What a great space, and certainly inspiring to see an innovation center, you know, an opportunity for probably students in the community to come in and explore and really kind of see what's possible. So congratulations to everybody. Perfect, step one. So I'm happy to be here today to kind of share with you my journey from covergalls to covergalls, and share the ups and downs and what really has gone on over the last decade. So I'm sure it's probably almost everybody here in the room, certainly in Timmins. For me, living and being born and raised in Sudbury, I felt like I grew up mining. I always tell people, like, I just feel like I grew up in mining because mining was all around me. My father, my grandfather, my uncles, had a business where they repaired underground mining equipment. And, we had home with the big nickel. So this is the early days of Dynamic Earth, place that we used to, visit frequently so that we can understand about the industry that really impacted every one of our lives every day. So for me, that's what I grew up in mining. Everybody was involved, whether it was in the mining industry itself, whether it was supply service sector, or even, the education side. So fast forward, as I grew up, as I mentioned, my dad and my grandfather and his brother started a company called Marcotte Mining. And Marcotte Mining first started off repairing underground mining equipment. As they grew their business, they actually started to design and manufacture their own fleet of underground utility vehicles. So, as a child, I would often spend weekends with my dad in the shop. And I don't know if it was the pizza or the donuts, but it certainly drew me in there. And, I often, would be there and would just kind of watch what was happening. It was pretty cool, to be up in engineering. The big draft tables would be out, and they'd be designing the piece of equipment on paper, and then that would get carried to the floor where they would cut the steel, and it would kind of go through the process, and out drove a piece of equipment. How neat was that? And we'd often get to drive in those vehicles, out in the yard. So growing up, I just wanted to be like my father. I would go there on weekends. Unfortunately, when I was in grade 8 and 13 years old, my father passed away in a snowmobile accident. I had 2 younger siblings at the time, and for me, at that moment, it was like that was my 5-year-old dream, to be him, and what was I going to now be? And so that's kind of a transitional time for probably, any individual. You're leaving grade 8, going into high school, you're trying to figure out who you're going to be, you think you know where you're going, all of a sudden now things have just changed in the flash of a moment. So as I went through high school, I really struggled with, who was I now going to be? I'd always wanted to work at Marcotte Mining, I'd wanted to be in the shop. During that high school year, I started to explore, what were the things that I enjoyed? And for me, I was actively involved in Girl Guides. And I thought, maybe I should look at a career in teaching, because at that time, probably almost all of my girlfriends were going in to be a teacher or a nurse. Those were the career paths that they were encouraged to take. I mean, even when the guidance counselors came in from, to kind of help us choose our path, it was teachers and nurses were kind of the careers that the females were pushed towards, and then you've got trades and other industries that the boys were kind of pushed towards. So I thought, I'm going to be a teacher. I've figured out who I'm going to be. So I go to enroll in my course, unfortunately, or probably fortunately, it was full, and so I had to take night courses. So that meant I was free during the day. And my aunt, who happened to still work at Marcotte Mining, even though the company had been sold after my father passed away and my grandfather, she was there and she asked me to come in to do some administration tasks. So I found myself back at the place that I called home. This place that I always envisioned myself kind of, being when I grow up. And I immediately just loved being there. So took on a number of different roles, and at the time there was this amazing general manager, and I think, thinking back, he was very progressive. He sat down with me, I was 21 at the time, female in the mining industry, and he said, Alicia, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, to be honest, I want your job. Like this is what I've always wanted. I've always wanted to be the GM of this company. And he said, we're going to help you get there. So he said, if you put the time and the commitment in, we'll help to create a path so that you can, get into that position. So he created a job for me upstairs. I actually stepped away from taking courses to pursue that path of being a teacher because I felt like I was back at home. And he said, we're gonna put you up with the sales team, and these were all the account managers, all guys who were selling the underground mobile equipment. We'll get you to do all the presentations, all the stuff behind the scenes for them, so when they go meet the clients, they're prepared. And I said, well, I really wanna know what it's like to go underground as part of the role so I can better understand. So he said, okay, I'm gonna line up a visit for you. We're gonna go to Valley's Stobie line. So he says, go to the local safety supply store, buy all of your gear, and we're gonna go underground. So, go to the local safety supply store, and to my surprise, there was absolutely nothing for women. Nothing. So I bought the smallest that I could find, having to like roll the coveralls up, tuck things in. I even put wool socks like at the end of my work boots because they were just too big. So got geared up, went underground, took the cage, and I remember stepping off the cage, and I said to the guys, like, if I had to go to the washroom today, like, where do I go? And they all started to laugh, and they just pointed to the end of the drift, which was pitch black, and I just went, there is no way I am taking all of this off today. And so we went on and did our day, took the cage back to service, and I remember getting home thinking, there's got to be something better for women. So I did a quick Google search, and all I could find were gardening coveralls, which certainly were going to meet my industrial needs. So for the next 10 years, I just didn't drink anything before I went underground. I just simply refused to take everything off. The consequence of that, however, was often I would get to surface, I would have a headache, I would be nauseous, I'd be vomiting, wasn't feeling well because I actually just refrained from consuming any liquids through my day. That was until the summer of 2011. Found myself in Saskatchewan, home of all the potash mines. And I'm out at Mosaic, and we go out to visit one of the sites and get dressed up, get to the cage, and they have like a trough, like a watering trough. And my colleague gives me like a little cooler, like a bubba, and he says, here, you're gonna wanna fill this up today. I said, Steve, we've traveled. I don't drink water before we go underground. He says, no, you're gonna need it today. I said, why? He said, just dry and dusty. He said, if it's gonna make you happy, I'll put a water bottle in my pocket. So put a little water bottle in my pocket, and we went underground that day. But what he failed to tell me is that we are going to be running under the conveyor. So up and down under the conveyor, and I could scrape the potash off my face, extremely dry and dusty. And without realizing, I'd consumed 3 bottles of water. Got to the cage, super excited, we're going to surface, I now have to use the washroom. And the cage tender said, sorry, we're down for maintenance. It's gonna be a few more hours. And I looked all around me, and there was like 25 guys around me, and I remember sitting on the bench, and I looked over at Corey, I'm like, I just go to the washroom. And he says, okay, let's try and find you a porta potty. So Corey and I go down a couple drifts, we found a porta potty. Unfortunately, it had no door on it. It was being held by this massive boulder. So I, proceeded to step in, and it's like in a main drift. Stepped in, turned off my cap lamp, and just proceeded to take my garments off. And I can hear things falling out of my pockets. I'm trying not to, like everybody in the room has been in this situation. I'm trying not to let my coveralls touch the ground. I can't even see my hand. And I remember after that, stepping out, putting everything back together, and I said, I will never wear your coverall again. So I came back to Sudbury and worked with a seamstress to modify, my coverall. I needed something that not only fit me better, but also functioned. So she made these modifications, and it's funny, I was telling Joel from Wingspan Entrepreneur Podcast this morning that if you saw my first reiteration of my coverall, you'd laugh, because I literally took a gingerbread cookie cutter, because I can't draw, put it on a piece of paper, traced it, blew it up, marked what I needed to be done to the coverall, brought it to my seamstress and said, please do these. And so we did that. I then wore it. So here I'm going back out in the industry, going to different mine sites, and women are saying, wow, your coverall fits you better. And how are you drinking water? And I said, well, I've modified my own coveralls. I put a 2-way zipper in the front, so I could just zip up, and I incorporated a rear trap door in the back for easy bathroom breaks. And they'd say, well, can you make me a pair? I said, well, I'll check with my seamstress Ann. And then I'd see someone else, and they'd say, well, could you make a pair? So before I knew it, I had these women asking me to make them coveralls. During that time, a lot of the women had worked at Valet, and I think, Glenn with Valet's PPE committee at the time got wind of what I was doing, and he approached me and he said, listen, I love what you're doing. I hear you've got this coverall that provides functionality, but for us at Valet, safety is number one. So if we can offer our females a safe garment, and also we truly believe that this could be a tool to help us attract and retain a female workforce. Can we support you? What does that look like? So Valet gave us a group of women to trial this new coverall with. And so they wore it for a period of about 6 to 8 months. They gave us feedback, we incorporated the feedback, and then Valet's PPE committee met as a group, and they said, your garment is approved for wear. And instantly it was like, wow, we have this garment who's been approved by one of the world's largest mining companies. What are we gonna do now? Got this coverall, this design, this company's approved, but okay, what are we gonna call this company? How are we gonna approach this? And we were trying to get Valet to initiate a purchase order for a bit of a bulk order. And for me, a bulk order of 50 was massive. Probably not your average coverall provider, probably doesn't think 50 is big, but that was huge for us. And so we've just gotten this order. And so, for us, the tipping point was really validation from Valet saying, you've got a garment that is approved for wear. They're about to give us an order for 50 pairs. The feedback has been tremendously positive. So we just said, okay, well, but where are we gonna make these? And I was telling Joel again this morning, it took us almost a year to find somebody who would actually make the garment for us, because the second I said it's a female coverall, they stopped returning our calls, they stopped returning our emails, they said there's absolutely no market for female workwear. Fast forward, the funny thing is some of these manufacturers have started to launch women's workwear where they've taken the men's patterns and just made them smaller, but that's another story. It came time where I met this woman at a manufacturing company, and she died. Oh, I don't know. She was the only one that listened to me. And she was, she managed to convince the owner of her company, who was a gentleman in his late 70s, was able to convince him that they should take this on as a white label. So because of her, we had found a manufacturer to produce our product. So now we've got a manufacturer. Valet's giving us an order. My family and I are watching Dragon's Den. It's a TV show that we would watch. It was a bit of like a game show. So, my son and my daughter and my husband and I would watch the pitches, and we would decide whether we were going to invest or not. Often my son would like to just imitate Kevin, because that was kind of his favorite person on the show at that time. And during that particular episode, there was a commercial for auditions in Sudbury, which were taking place tomorrow. So we kind of looked at each other and, we kind of like, maybe this is the opportunity to pitch this product. Why not? So I remember calling my babysitter, who happened to be at the high school located beside the hotel where they were doing the auditions. And I said, can you come and wear my garment during your lunch break? We're gonna go pitch to the Dragons. She said, what? I said, you just need to wear the coverall. That's all you need to do. And I think for me, as I went to those auditions, I didn't think it would ever go beyond just pitching to the producers to even have the opportunity to go to the show. And so we pitched at the hotel. They had even said, if you don't hear from us, please do not reach out. Okay, that's fair. They said, if we're going to, if you're selected to be able to pitch to the Dragons, you'll hear from us in the next few weeks. Give us up to 4 weeks, but if you don't hear anything, please try again next year. Okay. So 2 weeks later, we get a call from Dragon's Den saying, will you come pitch the Dragons? And I remember thinking, oh no, what did I do? I thought, great go pitch, but I never thought we would get the invitation to actually go down to CBC Studios to pitch to the Dragons. And she said, you're one of the first companies that we've called, so you kind of have selection of the date. So they gave us a calendar of like 4 weeks, and she said, you get to pick whichever time you want to come down. I'm like, I will pick the end. And she said, what? I'm like, no, I gotta hustle now. I've got to get as many POs in my hand. I gotta study my business in and out before I go down and face them. And I remember going to Chapters at the time, because Dragons Den actually had a book out about pitching to the Dragons, and I read that book like 3 times. It was all marked up. I've never studied as hard for anything as I did for that pitch. I was so terrified to face Kevin. To my surprise, I found out just before I went that he was no longer going to be on the show, which was a bit of a relief. So we did go down to pitch the Dragons, and it was far more than I could have ever imagined, But I do remember getting to the top of the planking and thinking, I need to make sure I don't fall down the stairs. And then I thought I was having a bit of a heart attack, and the producer's like, just drink some water, you'll be fine. I remember thinking, whose water was it anyways? She's like, just go. The good thing is that they don't tell you that it's not just the 5 dragons that are there. There's like a balcony of about 50 plus people up top. There are people in the back, like there's probably a crew of 80 or so around you as you're pitching, but I was so happy that they did not share that with me. I thought it was just me and the Dragons. So for those that haven't seen the episode, it did air as the season premiere, which I've been told is like the most viewed episode. So like just to be even given that space was incredible. And so we did that, and we did make a deal on the show. So we did walk away with a deal with Arlene, Mike Weckerly, and Jim Treliving. You won't see it, but you know how in Dragons Den they have that back room? And so they asked me before I went out, do you want anybody to go in the back room so that if you need to have a conversation with them, they'll be there? My husband's like, I am not going in that back room. He's like, this is your company, like this is your story, this is your product. He's like, I will support whatever decision you make. Okay. So what you didn't see was like 4 out of the 5 had said they'd all offer me a deal, and they were all individual. And I remember looking at my girlfriend who happened to be on stage with me because she was one of the models, and I just looked at her and I'm like, who do you pick? And Arlene said, do you need to go to the back room? I'm like, yeah, even if it's with myself, I'll go. So I went back to the back room. They tried to tried to find my husband. They finally found him. They got him on the phone. I was on the phone. And the producers later said, we would never be able to use that footage because we had no idea what you were saying. She said, you just mumbled the whole time. And I think for me, it was just like being able to flush out my thoughts at that time so I could walk back into the den and kind of have a clear mind to make my decision. So was able to get all of them. After facing them, so much came out of that opportunity. I think number 1 was the confidence to face 5 dragons. When you walk down the stairs, they are like, there is no motion. And I think it's meant to intimidate you as, kind of the entrepreneur and the pitcher. But once you start telling your story, people relate to stories. There's power in stories, and immediately it connected with the dragons, and then it just felt like we were just having a simple conversation. When the episode aired, we could actually see the traction across the country, and the requests that we were getting really, I guess, kind of took that validation to another level. We had Goldcorp reaching out to us from their head office in Vancouver. We had BC Hydro reaching out to us. We had Mark's Commercial, and it was immediately like, this is not just a product for valet, this is really a product for all these industries and all these companies. It also really kind of, brought the brand to a different level. It also, I think, which was probably the most special part for me, was we were getting emails from women who were working in their roles in their respective industries, but felt like they were alone. They felt like they were on their own islands. And by seeing the pitch on Dragons Den, immediately made them feel like they weren't the only one. And like we kind of just like were pulling people together, which was pretty cool. Also from being on the den, just kind of the opportunity to be featured and showcased in different radio and media outlets was pretty cool. I think what we quickly realized though is the Covergal was great, but the reality is if we actually wanted to build a business, we couldn't rely on one simple SKU. We couldn't just rely on the sales of the coverall. And nor did the women who liked our product wear the coverall. So a lot of women would reach out to us and say, hey, we love what you've done with the Covergal, but in my role, I don't wear it. I wear pants and a shirt. I wear a parka. So we quickly realized that we needed to expand that product line. And part of being on the Dragon's Den, Mechanics Wear saw what we were doing. And they reached out to us and said, as an organization, we have very limited SKUs for women. We want to work together with you to launch a female glove. So we did a co-brand with Mechanics Wear. I'm huge on collaborations. I mean, if you can get there faster, if you can leverage brands that are already there and really kind of pull together, I think that's super important and critical. So we definitely leverage a lot of collaborations. And as I mentioned, I just felt like we're now starting to build a brand. It was getting, visual impact. A lot of, women were excited. I was telling somebody about this story on the far bottom right, and it actually took place here in Timmins. So this little girl, her name is Alicia. At that time, she was 9 years old. She made 3 wishes to Make-A-Wish Canada. It was a minor, a minor, a minor. So Make-A-Wish Canada had no idea how to grant this little girl her wish. Shared International in Toronto at the time had sponsored Make-A-Wish as kind of part of their employee charitable donation. So naturally they went to Shared to say, how are we going to grant this little girl her wish? They always get requests for Justin Bieber concerts, trips to Disneyland, shopping, but never a minor. So we teamed up with Make-A-Wish and Shared International, and we created all the PPE that she needed to go underground. Goldcorp here in Timmins hosted her at Hoyle to take her underground. To me, this is what it's about. I've never seen anybody more excited about the mining industry than this little girl. She put those coveralls on, she had a little miner's lunch pail, we got LMA to make her one, and she was so excited. And so us, this is what it's about, kind of inspiring that next generation. So as we continue to kind of grow as a company, we're now just not the coveralls, we're an expanded product line. We quickly realized that it wasn't just about the product. Yes, we were selling products, but we were far more than just that. And we quickly identified there was 3 pillars to our organization. One is the obvious, right? You've got health and safety. We all know PPE is meant to personally protect the person. So if it's ill-fitting, it's not doing its job at the most basic form. So obviously, having proper fitting workwear addresses the safety issue. If you think about health and not drinking for a full day, and if you're repeating that day in and day out, that has impacts on the body. We also saw that our product really kind of touched on the DE&I. If you want to create inclusive work environments, you have to provide people with the proper fitting workwear and tools. And for me, the first 10 years of my career, I felt like I was wearing my dad's workwear to work. How professional do you feel? How included do you feel? Do you feel like you really belong? And if we want to attract and retain a female workforce, at minimum, we need to make sure that they're wearing gear that is designed for them. And for us, the next generation is so important, being able to give back. The mining industry is an industry that is near and dear to my heart, very passionate about it, working hard to change the perception of what the industry is, right? A lot of people, when they think mining, they just think dirty, unsafe, and it's so not that. So if we can do our part in educating people on what the industry has to offer and what it, what it has, like if you think about the technology in the mining industry, I know I'm kind of diverging from Covergalls, but like we're operating battery electric vehicles now underground. We're using drone technology, we're using iPads, like we're using all of the cool things. And as an industry, we need to be promoting this to attract and retain the next generation of people. You know, people don't realize that if it's not grown, it has to be mined. And mining touches everybody every day. So it's like, it's critical. So we do our part to try and educate, engage, inspire that next generation. And part of the work is with Dynamic Earth and Sudbury, where we made little coveralls where kids can like put them on, and they've got a playground where they envision themselves in the industry. Now, this certainly has not been an easy journey, and for those that have either startups or you have your own businesses, it is not a smooth ride. There have certainly been a ton of challenges. Could probably be here for the next few hours to go through all of them, but at a high level, number one, no manufacturer wanted to produce our product. It took us a year to convince someone that there could be a market for this one day. And fast forward 10 years, we are seeing that things are shifting and changing, which is great. So you've got the manufacturing. We also have resistance to change. I think when we would start engaging with organizations, for them, they were thinking this was about fashion. This was not about fashion. This was about fit, it's about safety, it's about health. So just educating people on why it was so important. And I think, my husband said, I think you're working full time just to fund Covergalls. And he was probably right. There's also the challenges too, right, around cash flow, managing a business. I think as an entrepreneur, you're trying to wear all these different hats because you're trying to, decide where are your funds going to go. Are you going to put your funds into bringing on board more people? Are you going to invest in making sure you have product and stuff? There's so many decisions that have to be made. It's not easy, a lot of sleepless nights. One that really sticks out is we're working with a manufacturing company, and then they got... You want to try the other one?
The plug. The plug. There's a plug in that wall too, so
I feel like with COVID, we all understand there's technical difficulties. After using Zoom for 3 years, we still can't get onto the platform. I'm on mute. Yeah. That video where they have every scenario that is going on.
Oh, there.
Teamwork here. So as I was mentioning, we were working with this manufacturing facility in Alberta, and they got super busy with their own product line, which meant they were bumping my orders. So, he said, listen, we have another manufacturing company down the road that we work with. Are you okay if we subcontract your product to him? I said, sure. The mistake I made was assuming that he knew that the guy was reliable. If I talk loud, can you hear? Yes. Okay. I'm fine with that. Because I think you guys can hear. If you need me to raise, just go like this in the back. If you want me to speak louder, but. So I made the assumption that he was passing me on to somebody who was reputable, right? I didn't do my due diligence mistakes. Quickly, I gave him deposits. He started to produce some workwear. All is great. He's delivering on what he committed to. Then he says, Alicia, if you give us a bigger deposit, we'll give you a discount. Okay, he's been delivering on time. You look at your cash flow. Okay, this makes sense. I can do this. So give him a bigger
deposit, he delivers that first batch, I get a discount, which is an increase to my gross margin. Wonderful. Now he says, we're building this relationship. So now I give him a bigger deposit because he's making more orders, but now he's not delivering. So now not is he only not delivering, but he's gotten my money, and my clients aren't getting their product. Quickly realized that we needed to diversify our manufacturing partners. We made the mistake, number one, not doing due diligence. I assumed that my manufacturer knew the ability of the subcontractor. I should have checked. So now we don't have product, he's got our money, we've got clients who are upset, and they're growing increasingly upset with us. They want their product. So we quickly, stepped back and said, okay, we need to find other manufacturing partners. Surely it can't be hard in Canada. So I reached out to Global Affairs Canada. I had gone on a mission with them to a female business conference in Orlando earlier that year, and I reached out to them and I said, we have this product, there is a need, we need to manufacture, we want to manufacture in Canada, can you help us? So we found the Trade Commissioner of Apparel. They worked closely with us to identify a list of potential manufacturers. And quickly, we saw that we could actually have other partners. So, a hard lesson to learn on a number of different fronts, but certainly has helped us, today to make sure that we no longer rely on one manufacturing partner to produce our product. And I think, as I mentioned earlier about these collaborations, for me, the reality is we're stronger together, right? When people work together as teams, you can accomplish so much more. And I think, we saw that when we were on the Dragon stand, just women coming together, and not just women. There was also, dads who had young females who were in these industries who wanted to connect them to us so that their daughters weren't feeling alone, right? So it was essentially just kind of pulling everybody together and building a community. And I think what it showed me too was, I didn't know everything. My background was heavy equipment. I could put together a bomb and write up electrics, hydraulics, powertrain, and build a piece of equipment on paper, but building a piece of workwear that met these certain regulations and these certain CSA standards, I had no idea. And I think, as an entrepreneur, the quicker you can step back and realize that you're not an expert in these respective areas and pull in those that are, you'll just be far better off. And for me, I had the opportunity to meet two amazing women at 3M, Anne and Janine, and they instantly saw the opportunity for my product because in their roles at 3M, they're out in the field and they're seeing the challenges that women have. So they quickly kind of took me under their wing and they started to educate me on CSA standards, on reflective tape, on material, and they have always kind of been there with me through the journey to the point where they've even invited me to their 3M's Innovation Center in Minneapolis, and if you ever get the opportunity to go to that place, I would certainly sign up immediately because it's pretty impressive, and the culture at 3M around innovation is certainly something that if I had to look for a full-time job, I would probably look to find one there. But for me, it kind of was a reminder of, it's not just you, it's that support system that's around you, right? Whether it's your family or your friends, you will never get there alone. And you're only as strong as the people are around you. Now, fast forward to 2019. Up until that point, I had actually been working full-time. So the piece that I didn't tell you is I was working at Markup Mining, which is the company my family started. I worked there for probably about 8 or 9 years. And then McLean Engineering approached me, and I joined McLean Engineering at that time. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a glass ceiling where I was. So I made the leap, joined the McLean Engineering team, learned a lot. It was during that time that I pitched on the Dragons. And I remember Dave Chilton telling me, that I had to quit my job the next day. And I thought, oh my goodness, Jonathan is watching this on TV right now. And he's probably wondering, am I quitting? And so, which is why I turned down that offer. But, I worked at McLean Engineering. And then I kind of got to this point where, Covergalls was starting to gain momentum. A mentor of mine said, listen, Alicia, There's no reason why you can't do both, have a full-time career and run Covergalls, as long as you have the right teams around you in both respective areas. So I continued to do that. Then presented an opportunity when I was 37, which was the age that my father had passed away, where the Timberland Group had come back to me and said, we want you to come and manage our mining. And that's when I was like, I've got Covergalls, it's growing, but like, this is my 5-year-old dream, like to be able to go back and be in a position that my father was in, it was like kind of tugging at the heartstrings. So I made the jump. I went back to market mining, took the role as GM, did that for a few years. Unfortunately again, the company made the decision to dissolve market mining, which was perhaps a blessing in disguise, because what that allowed me to do was to take on Covergalls full time and really see its true potential. Because what I will tell you is you will never see the true potential out of something if you don't give it 110%. So here we are, I've left my comfy, secure, growth career, and I'm taking off with Covergalls. And what I quickly recognized is that half the time with Covergalls was being spent working with companies to create and establish their DE&I strategies and initiatives. It was around educating companies, and I thought, half my time is going to this and my teams, and we're not being compensated for it. It's a lot of time going into doing all of these activities. We should formalize this part of the business, because we really think that if we work with companies, we can make further change. So we launched CGLN Consulting in the fall of 2019, had our first trip to Brazil, where Yamena Gold hired us to come down, engage with their workforce, do a full assessment to understand the challenges that actually everybody had with workwear, not just limited to female. That made us realize two things. One, it actually really isn't a gender issue. Yes, females have not been provided proper fitting PPE, but what we quickly saw is that the men were having challenges as well. And it really wasn't a gender issue. We also saw that they were progressive with the thought of maternity wear, and so that's where our maternity wear kind of collection spun from, was inspiration from Yamena because of the percentage of females that they had in their workforce. So that's really what we came home with and started to tackle with maternity workwear. So here we are now engaging with sites, we're traveling, we're meeting with people, sizing kits, and working on all-inclusive workwear programs with clients, which involve like on-site fitting, sizing, discussions. And at this time, we get hit with the pandemic. So it allowed us to really kind of step back and see as an organization, like, where did we want to take our product line, where did we see kind of future needs coming, and that's where we recognize that if we want to attract and retain more women, pregnancy could be a part of someone's journey, and they needed to be properly outfitted, because the one thing that I, for myself, when I was expecting, I just wore big baggy coveralls because I didn't want anybody to know, because I didn't want anyone to tell me I couldn't work. But if you think about it, we pride ourselves as a mining industry saying safety is number one. So if I, who I'm expecting, can't go to an area that you've already deemed is supposed to be really safe, like, I can still work. And that's where if we outfit women, they'll still feel confident and included. Now, after that visit, I was giving a talk in Toronto, and these 3 young women came to see me. These 3 young women work for the government of Ontario. They were on a tour to visit Norcat. I'm not sure if anybody knows Norcat Fakunis out in Onnipeg. There's an adit, so Norcat was hosting a government tour. And these 3 young females walked into the trailer with everybody else, and they got dressed. They went outside. The tour guide from Norcat said, like, what are you girls wearing? I said, I don't know, we just grabbed what was in the trailer. He said, no, come with me. And so he brought them to another area of the trailer that we donated workwear to. And these 3 young girls said they stepped into that area and they put on the Covergalls products, and they instantly felt like they belonged there that day. So they came and found me at the top just to tell me that there's power in the right uniform. They said, I don't think you realize it's not just about the fit and the functionality, it's how it made us feel. Up until that point, we thought we were an afterthought. We felt like the mining industry wasn't a place for us. But when we got geared up and it fit us. They were super excited to be there. They walked out with confidence. They were ready to go underground and check things out. And then what do girls of this age do? They're taking selfies, they're sharing with their friends, and now they're promoting the mining industry, right? It's kind of like a win-win scenario. So I often use this slide as kind of like my safety share. It's obviously about safety and health, but it's about a feeling of belonging. And if you think about it, clothes empower a person. When you got up this morning and you got dressed, how did it make you feel? You know, clothing is a reflection of who you are, it gives you confidence, and we wear workwear every day. So first of all, I love this photo. It was taken in Sudbury, a mural downtown. The crazy thing is we're taking this photo, and one of the girls is like, that's me, because we're talking about the girl in the mural, and she's like, that's me. I'm like, what do you mean that's me? So that's actually her on the mural, which we didn't even know when we went to go take the photo that day. But to me, when I see this photo, it just kind of screams confidence. And women are not scaled down versions of men. And as I mentioned earlier, there are manufacturers who come with women's stuff, but they are men's stuff made smaller. And I have a couple stats here, I think, which are really will hit home. So the CSA commissioned a study and a report on Canadian women and their PPE. And from that report, the 3 most common problems that Canadian women face, 50% women said their PPE doesn't fit. And it's not just workwear, it's respirators, it's all the other items as well. 43% said it's uncomfortable. 35% said there's inadequate selection of workwear. And then a lot of the time, women actually pay out of pocket, which their employers don't realize. They pay out of pocket to modify, or they're doing it at home. And what we found is they're actually modifying harnesses, like 5-point safety harnesses at home, like completely jeopardizing the integrity of the garment. So 58% said that the PPE that they're provided is the wrong size. 60% of the workforce. 30% said they don't even wear all the PPE they're supposed to because of fit issues. 38% said they use a workaround, so like rubber bands, modifying stuff, even the 5-point harness. And 40% actually said they've had an injury or an accident because of the proper PPE. So, I mean, the stats are there. And I think CSA bringing that report to the forefront, hopefully, is going to start to make change. And I think for us, we want to be a part of that change. We want to lead by example. And so some of the things that we're doing, not just the maternity workwear, but we are saying from an environmental perspective, how can we do our part? And so we're starting to come up with sustainable pieces that are made out of recycled plastic water bottles that you can completely trace, full blockchain, and then start to collect that data as an organization. Now, I have mentioned, just when COVID hit, we launched this consulting division. We were traveling to sites, which couldn't happen anymore. And at that time, all that work just kind of stopped. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can quickly pivot, right? There's something to be said about an entrepreneur or an organization that's smaller, just like being able to quickly pivot. And for us, we did that with the fabric face mask. And it was really inspired by a number of people. One, a friend of mine sending me articles before the face masks came out saying, this is going to be a thing. And the other thing is I saw that we had some seamstresses, and actually one in Timmins too, and in Sudbury who weren't working. So we actually took fabric we had, started having them make fabric face masks, and then that just kind of grew interest and we started to produce them. So I think, as an entrepreneur, you do need to be able to quickly adapt and pivot based on your current situation. And part of that too was supporting the local community, and we bartered with Crosscut. So we made masks for them. They gave us sanitizer. We swapped products. So I think it's important that you're supporting the local community. And kind of getting to the end here, and I thought we would share the recent Dragon's Den episode, which is really kind of like a summary of everything that's gone on in the last 10 years, and it just aired in February.
And having to wear men's workwear. There's absolutely nothing for women. Having to roll things up, tuck things in. The even bigger challenge with my garment was the ability to use the washroom. And since launching, we have now focused on covering gals head to toe and proper fitting workwear. My name is Alicia Woods, and I am the CEO and founder of Covergalls, and I was on season 9. For me, being in the Dragon's Den was far more than I could have ever imagined. I thought the investment and having that partnership was what I needed, I came away with so much more than that.
I definitely want you to quit your job soon. I want you to quit by Saturday. Okay, so there you go.
At the time of being in the den, I was a director of sales North America for a big company. I had a very promising career with growth. And to be honest, for me, it was an immediate no. I thought I could do both. But the reality is you'll never see the true potential out of something if you don't give it 110%. So in the fall of 2019, I chose to leave my full-time career and take Covergalls on full-time. We were able to enter new markets, bring on new distribution partners, and continue to expand our product line. I think some of the pieces of advice that I received in the den, I've implemented since then.
I understand exactly what your product's about, but I see this far beyond the mining industry. I see the application much larger than that.
And for me, that was a light bulb moment because she was so right. Since airing, we are now in so many other industries like the trades, construction, oil and gas. It's exciting to see that we are now growing into an organization that has sales of over $1 million a year. But more importantly, that means that the number of women are growing in those organizations, and we're really starting to increase the representation of females in the workforce.
Yeah, I think for me, that was the thing, when you see the sales, it really has to do with the amount of women now coming into these industries, and finally employers recognizing the need to provide proper fitting PPE to their workforce. And for this particular piece, Joel and I were talking, you've been on there 3 times, and it's hard to believe, I can't even imagine having that opportunity when we first went to that audition, at the hotel. But we did have our pitch at the end of that season. The Dragons were allowed to pick one of their favorite pitches and go to their hometowns. So Mike Buckley chose Covergalls. We took them underground Valley Coleman's mine. We dressed them up in a male version of the Covergall, and we were able to do that. But what was really cool is we got to spend time with 3 phenomenal women in the industry and really kind of highlight the work that they're doing, which was really a little bit more important to me than having Mike there that day. This particular piece came up last summer. There was a survey that went out. I actually kind of thought it was spam, and then I thought maybe I should take a look at this a little bit more. And it was a survey about kind of where you are. And I remember talking to a girlfriend of mine who's in branding and marketing, and she said, you've got to see how they impacted your business. So I went back and watched to see kind of what pieces of advice I took and filled out the survey, and then we were given the opportunity to do that piece, which was, again, another piece of advertising and marketing. So here we are today, and I think, you get to a point as an entrepreneur or startup where you have to make decisions. Are you prepared to stay the status quo, or do you want to grow? And when you step back, you have to recognize, and I think self-reflect, which Ian and I talked about, can I do this alone? Do I have everything I need to be able to do this? And for Covergalls, we have so much opportunity in front of us. The reality is I can't do it all alone. I don't have all of those skill sets to be able to take the organization to the next level. And what does that mean? What are you needing? So recently I brought on board an advisor investor who, just has a different set of skills than I do, and together I know that we can take the company to the next level. And it's okay to let go. I think if you want to grow and to push yourselves, you have to let those people in. Of course, it has to make sense. I kind of compare it to it's a relationship, right? If you're going to bring on board an investor, it's a relationship, and you have to trust your gut. Does that person or person's values and mission, vision align with mine? And if it doesn't, it's okay to say no. There are other resources that are out there. And I think, this morning I was online and I came across this one blog, and I thought it would be kind of, fitting to kind of share it here today. And I think, it said, the core idea is unsuccessful people focus on the gap, what's missing, while the successful people focus on the gain, the progress that they've actually made. This person said, it got me thinking about the revenue I now have each month is what I was actually dreaming of 5 years ago. It's a powerful reminder of how far we've come and how it reinforces the importance as entrepreneurs of celebrating celebrating our gains, no matter how small they are. It's easy to lose sight and forget to celebrate where we were and how far we've come. And I think, you need to step back and really kind of think about that, and that really hit me. And I thought, wow, maybe this was meant to come in my inbox today, because I certainly have learned a number of things. I've learned to trust your gut. Once I didn't trust my gut, I didn't follow it, and it proved to be a bad decision. Luckily, it didn't have that much impact. I think never to use fear of failure as a reason, not to do something. I think that often prevents us from kind of pushing our boundaries. And I think at the end of the day, we have two choices. You have the choice to build somebody else's dream, or you have the choice to build your own. And I know for me, leaving my career was certainly in the direction of, wanting to build my own dream.
So we've got time for questions. Maybe I'll kick one off. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Please just curious about your experience on the Dragons. You mentioned you had 4 of them come to you, all with offers. One of them said, quit your job. No, not right now. Would you go back in time, change that decision? Would you go back in time and take whomever's investment is
I would certainly go back and ask for more money. Only because when you do the deal on TV, I was there in May, it aired in the fall, and then initial due diligence and secondary due diligence takes so long, and a lot of the time they try and close the deals before the episode airs. Because when the episode airs, you're getting new business, you're getting new attention, and things change for you, or they could change for you. And so they were trying to push me to get things done. I think that day there was something off, and I just said it just wasn't right. So I waited, but fast forward, just so much had changed. I met this amazing woman. I met her for coffee, and I said, I'm about to go sign a deal with one of the Dragons. I said, but if he moves my meeting, I don't think he's the right partner for me. And she said, okay. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, while I was sitting there having coffee with Patrice, his assistant emailed me to move the meeting. And I was about to say, yeah, okay. She's like, what did you tell yourself? So she coached me to actually retain 100%. She said, what do you truly need? And I think that was the other things. I walked in thinking it was about the money. It actually wasn't about the money. What did I truly need? And I think as an entrepreneur, you step back, you identify your gaps and your areas where you can bring in other people. And I thought it was about money. It wasn't.
Can you expand on that? So we often, with the North Ontario Angels, we talk to our investors around doing their due diligence into the company. But it's important for the entrepreneur that's raising to do the due diligence. Maybe if you can expand on that experience a little bit more around identifying what is just money, smart money versus cash money. You mentioned
Oh my goodness, yeah, so many learnings around that. I think, to probably back it up, when you get out of the den, you essentially have 2 weeks to submit your initial due diligence. And I will tell you, I took those 2 weeks off and I was prepared. If you were not prepared, there is no way you would have ever been able to submit the package on time, so you would have been probably disqualified. And then you carry over to a secondary due diligence. So that's just kind of the administrative part with them. But I think, yeah, the entrepreneur needs to do due diligence as well. Like you said, is it smart money? And also, is it because I immediately need it right now? You need to be thinking in the future, because by the time you get it, you'll probably need more, right? So it's about also looking forward. Yes, I may immediately right now need an injection of cash flow, but is that going to sustain me the next 6 months, the next 8 months, the next 12, right? So you have to think of these things too. And then what does that person bring to the table? If it's just the cash that you want, then that's fine. But I feel like it's far more than just the dollars.
Folks, any questions for Alicia? Yes, let's take it.
I'm curious who you made the deal with.
I did make the deal.
And with that person you made the deal with, did it pan out to what you thought the help or support you would get from that dragon?
Yeah, I actually didn't end up making the deal.
Oh, okay.
I actually did walk away from the deal. The cool thing is when I did this piece, that particular dragon actually was all over social media congratulating us on our progress and really has continued to support us, which has been pretty incredible, so,
So you continue to have support afterwards?
yeah,
Okay, that's good.
yeah.
So it's more an exposure.
Oh my gosh, that's the part I didn't even realize. I thought as a viewer of Dragons Den, like we made the money, but it was like the power of the exposure. And what my producer said when I worked with her on the pitch, she said, this is like a free $1 million infomercial. She's like, you have to make good TV. Because just because you go in the den and you pitch and you get a deal, doesn't mean that it will air. So, well, and they have so many pictures that go in. So I was like, she's like, okay, we're gonna like, it's about being presented with the opportunity where they actually air your pitch. Because really good or bad, you're still getting exposure.
Any other questions?
Do you think that by having the exposure and being able to do that accelerated how you would become familiar with your numbers? If you never got an opportunity, would you understand your numbers of your company before?
Probably not, because I think also, like as an entrepreneur wearing all these hats, I was still working full time. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, there's so much going on. And to me, that side of the business is not fun. Right? So, it's like, and that's about recognizing, like, we're not experts in every respective area of our business. You know, you get to a point where you're like, hey, I need to bring somebody in who is smarter and better than me in these areas because I don't find it fun, you know? For me, like, I love to, my background is sales and marketing, right? So that stuff for me was just getting put on the back burner. But I think the Dragons Den experience forced me to kind of get, you know, my head wrapped around and really get in tune with it. Because the last thing I wanted, because when you sign the agreement, is for them to paint you in the picture of being positive or not, right? Like they have full rights to turn your pitch into something different.
And then really quick follow-up. Once you did do your numbers and all your assessment, did you realize that you were further ahead or maybe behind or kind of in line what you were envisioning you were going to be?
I felt like I wanted to be like reasonable with my ask. Because I really wanted their support because I felt that they could just kind of help to propel. And it's almost like, do you want a little piece of a big pie or do you want all the pie but it's small? You know, so I was trying to be reasonable just and realistic, really. That's why I waited till the end so I could try and get as many orders as possible so I could try and, you know, shift that number. But I've watched it a number of times and there's a lot of times where people are asking for a lot of money and, you know, they just rip them apart because it just doesn't make sense. So I wanted to be realistic about my ask.
I'll ask a final question. Again, this is an amazing presentation. Thank you. I love the connection with the Make-A-Wish girl. It's lovely. I'm just curious about your workforce. Like, how many people do you have on Covergalls payroll?
So
Like from a numbers standpoint.
Yeah, so to be honest, actually, all of my employees are contractors, except for one. I lied, actually, two. So we have a part-time social media, and then recently we onboarded a director of design, production, and quality control, which was, I think, a massive gap in the organization. So this is the world that she has, like, kind of worked in, so she knows that. So she's been a huge asset to the company. And then the rest are actually all contractors. And some of them are actually entrepreneurs themselves, which I actually encourage them to be because it's making them happy. You know, people say, what, you're encouraging, you know, your business manager, online business manager to start her own business? I'm like, yeah, she's happy. She's going to give me more, right? We're creating this environment where people want to work. And so a lot of them are contractors. So.
You answered my follow-up question before I got there. So I was curious, in your example, when you went into Marcotte and you told the gentleman, I want your job. Yeah. He said, great, well, we're gonna cultivate that for you. So nice to hear that you have contractors that are entrepreneurs that are, maybe they haven't been as direct as you, whatever they're saying. You want to follow your lead because it's obviously an inspiring story.
And I think, what would you not want to do with your team members, right? You know, encourage their growth and kind of support them. And I think they'll be better employees. And the reality is, like, they may need me. They may, and good for them, right? You know, like I'm happy to kind of help them and move their way. And when I was at Marcotte too, it was like, I think two things there. One, if you don't tell people what you want, they're never going to know. And I remember at Marcotte, my sales manager role, I was, you know, I put an application in, I was interviewed, I was given the role. Another female in the organization who was older than me at the time said, you know, with all due respect, congratulations on your role, but I should have got that job. I said, oh, yeah, you should have got that job. I said, she went into the reasons, and I've got more experience. I said, great. I said, did you apply for the job? She said, no. I said, well, then how would anybody you wanted my job? I said, but now that I know you want my job, I'm going to help you because I don't want to be in this job building, like, I want to find a replacement so I can move on.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of Northern College, we just want to give you a little thank you for such a wonderful speech, and it was very inspiring. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.